Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, as per your respective time zone. On behalf of entire Evosys Managed Services team, we'd like to welcome you all to 22C HR Help Desk and ORC Advisory webinar session. This important session is to keep you fully synchronized with the new features and functionalities as a part of this quarter release, which Oracle provides. My name is Hardik Patel. I'm an operations manager here at Evosys Managed Services. Today, I'm your host for this session, and I'm glad to introduce my colleague, Niyam Sanchaya, who's part of our vast HCM team at Evosys Nasdaq. He's been serving with us as a principal consultant. Today, he'll take us through all the HR Help Desk and ORC updates for 22C quarter release. Today's session is planned for around 45 to 60 minutes, and we'll make sure that we also leave some time to answer your questions you may have. So meanwhile, we also have a panelist with us who can answer any question of yours. You can ask your questions through chat or a question panel, which you can see on the screen. Before we move to today's agenda, let's have a quick look at the disclaimer. We'd like to convey your approach towards Oracle updates in a very simpler method. We'll be taking you through vital analysis for the 22C updates done by our experts, which will help you incorporate new features and updates easily into your system. We will also sync you on any bugs or known issues if there are any. It's good to have an interactive session, so again, please do ask your questions through chat or question panel. It's to give you a glimpse on how we have crafted the structure of this session. So the list of new features coming into 22C, detailing on features so you get a brief understanding on what new features are all about. The next one is what are the business benefits and important takeaway for you as a decision maker. There are 4 components where we have done in-depth analysis of features which we're going to present to you today. The first one is impact level analysis, which demonstrates the impact on the end user. If it's a low impact, then regression testing can be avoided or not. If it's a high impact, then we need to offer regression testing. The second one, which is we all are aware that there are some features which are by default auto-enabled by Oracle, and there's some which we need to opt for. And the third one highlights the nature of the feature. There would be certain configuration which may be required, or some can be used without any changes. And the last one, which is quick win, this term we use to simply convey that what is ready to use by investing minimum amount of time and what requires significant amount of time and efforts to make use of this feature. We won't take much time of yours, and then we'll begin for today's session. But before that, with this poll on the screen, we'd like to know that which industry your organization belongs to, please. It would be great help. I'll be closing the poll in 5 seconds, and immediately I'll be handing over to my colleague Niyam, and he'll be taking us through today's session. So Niyam, you can unmute yourself, and the stage is all yours. I'm closing the poll now. Thank you so much for everyone's feedback. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Hardik. I hope everyone can hear me. As Hardik said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's I know you. It means a lot to us that you're spending this time with us. We hope that we can give value in the next 40-45 minutes as we go through all the new features and our perspective on them. I won't spend too much time. I'm going to go through a lot of these features as we go along. What we're going to focus on today is our analysis of these features as well. So you know that Oracle releases these summaries on their own website as well. But we wanted to add a little bit of perspective to that, and that's why we are having this session. We have a combination of HR Help Desk and Oracle Recruiting Cloud features. There are 30 in total. 26 of them are recruiting features, and 4 of them are HR Help Desk features, but they are really significant improvements on the way things are. Apart from the whole next-gen Help Desk coming forward, which is an overhaul of the entire product, these are specific to 22C upgrade, and we're happy to walk you through these. Now, as Hardik pointed out, there are quick wins that we want to highlight. So we really wanted to focus on those things that can give you the highest value in the least amount of time. And that's why we are going to be focusing on those quick wins and how we can leverage these in our journey. As you know, Oracle Recruiting Cloud has been, and help desk have been newer entrants relatively. They're not 20 years old. They're modern, and what that also means is that they bake in a lot of these modern best practices, and they're constantly improving. So the rate of change in these, particularly these two modules, is phenomenally high, which is one reason we club them together. Um, I'll just take you through these. So you can see most of these are by default. So you're getting a lot of benefit out of this new upgrade without having to do much effort. That's 21 that come through by default. There are a few opt-ins and a few that require minor configurations. We'll walk through those each, and then we'll open the floor for questions as well. So there are 4 categories in which we divide this analysis. For those of you who have been to these sessions earlier, I think this is going to be a very familiar format because we want to focus on the content, not the understanding of that format. But to simplify, we have things that require no configuration. So there are new features which are absolute super fast wins. They're come off by default. There's no configuration required. There's no effort required. You can just pick up and start using them from tomorrow if you're already on 22C. Then there are some which require a little bit of configuration to enable, and we'll just talk through those as well. We have some which are opt-ins, right, which are you just have to elect whether you want to get into that feature or not, and we'll try to have a quick general high level idea of whether you should opt in or not, a general broad stroke guideline on that. And of course, we can engage with each customer individually as well to help you determine whether those features are worth opting in for your particular case or not. And finally, everything else is in the rest. So we'll start off with the real quick wins, which are quick wins which come by default with no configuration required. Right. So right off the bat, the first one, now this might look minor, but it signals the design perspective that they're taking with ORC. So this one is, I would say it's more of a selfish feature. It's more for consultants. It's in the setup and maintenance area. What they've done is in the candidate experience information page, they've rearranged things to make them in blocks so that it's more easy to understand. It's more intuitive to configure. And that just simplifies life for a consultant or a system administrator. Very minor change. It's a very quick win. The impact level, of course, is low because, as I said, it's a very minor change, but it does signal a large theme that's going on in the development. And I'll highlight those broad themes that we feel the product is going towards as well. So the quick win of this enhancement is that the changes in the configuration are done sectionally instead of for the whole page. So that gives you more control and groups together similar settings or similar configuration points so that you are able to see things in one view, and the learning curve for these things, the maintenance activities that you do, will go down because you're now everything is more logically arranged and better organized. So that's a quick win. Requires no configuration. It will come right off the bat as soon as you upgrade to 22C, and there's no need to enable this separately. Right, this is for ORC. I'll specifically call out when we go into help desk, but most of these features are going to be for recruiting cloud. As I said, the help desk features are significant, but there are only 4 of those. We'll go to the next one because I don't want to spend too much time on the low impact features. So this one, so again, as I said, there's a theme going on. One of the things that I think in 7 years of doing recruiting, we used to do Taleo business and enterprise. We were one of the first organizations to start implementing Oracle Recruiting Cloud. And we've worked on other systems as well, like iRecruitment and all the Oracle, the whole shebang, right? Throughout that, one thing that is very crucial and that comes out, unfortunately doesn't come out that often, is candidate experience. Now, candidate experience is the #1 focus when it comes to not just systems like recruiting, but also HR help desk, right? So anything that is customer facing, so to speak. So candidate facing or employee facing has to be really, really tight in terms of its user experience, in terms of its user interface, especially recruiting, because like a lot of you will relate to, if you're in a retail business, for example, your candidates are also your customers. And it's really important that your system actually understands that. Similarly, even if you're in manufacturing, your candidates are going to be your brand ambassadors. Even if they've been rejected, even whether they've been selected or rejected, they're going to talk about their candidate experience to their peers. And that's your first portal into the company's brand. So it's extremely crucial that your candidate experience is high. And I think that's been one of the major areas of investment for Oracle throughout, not just with Recruiting Cloud, even with their other products, but especially with Oracle Recruiting Cloud. They've gone all in on the candidate experience bit. Right from the beginning, if you remember, I'm sure most of you are using Recruiting Cloud right now, and you know that the login does not require a password. They're trying to reduce friction wherever possible. A step in that direction is the one that you see in front of you right now. So new sorting selector for job search results. So they've given a very simple search sorting feature. So if you're looking at any job and there's a whole list of jobs, so you can see even in our example here, uh, that's quite a bit of jobs, right? But that's not unheard of for a lot of our customers to have 51,000 open jobs. It's not unheard of at all. So for the candidates to be able to search it better, you have the sorting selector here. So you can either search by relevance, which is how closely matched it is to your search as a candidate, whether those keywords are matched, whether the location that you've asked for is there. But you also have posting date. So you're able to search for either which jobs are being posted more recently, which are the fresher jobs. So if there are 10 jobs that are similar, as a candidate, I would like to apply to the one that is the most recent, because that might give me the best chance of being seen, right, by a recruiter. So for a candidate, this is a big deal. Again, we've said low impact because there's very little that we have to do in order to do this, and it does not have a business impact or a change that is required to be undertaken. So it's low impact. You don't need to enable it. It will come right off the bat. It does not require any configuration, and because it enhances the job search experience by a good factor, it definitely falls in our criteria of a quick win. Within that same theme of improved candidate experiences and investment in the candidate user experience, you also have the redesigned filtering panel. So I can actually go through many more filters now, and all of them are visible right off the bat. As you know, the minimal template is the current modern template, which is built from the ground up for all devices, and it's also built to reduce friction. So there is a theory in human computer interaction which holds true in all user experience, which is the F view. So you will see the screen real estate that is most important is the F. So that means the left side column, the first line and the second line, and you can see Oracle is trying to utilize that real estate really well. Large search boxes to make sure that you, relative to the rest of the things, you're able to focus on what matters. And then very clear filtering. You can select any of these filterings, and these are all now configurable, so you can actually change the sequencing of it as well. So if you're a, let's say, multi-country retail operations, retail organization, you're able to search through location. So a candidate might want to go to the nearest store to work, right? So they might be able to search through locations, and that's very important for them. So the relative importance of searching through locations is evident in the fact that I'm going to read the F from left to right. And so I'm able to see that locations comes first. So I'm not going to look at posting dates. That's the least important, although I can sort by it. But if you're a council that's only in one location, maybe location isn't that important for you because you're going to be in that particular location. But job function is, or job categories might be. So in that case, you can reorder this and give that little bit of a incremental improvement in the candidate experience, make searching that much easier. And as I said, that's going to be a theme of a lot of these updates, and I'll keep calling that out as we go. As you can hear from my voice, I'm quite excited about the candidate experience improvements. Uh, so the business benefit here is that it enhances the job search experience by providing better access to job search results filter. Again, in the same lane, you have the ability to search through these filters. It'll give a list of things that you can select, and it'll show a counter of how many things you've selected as well. If the list is more than 10, so for locations, if you're a multi-country or a multi-location organization, you are going to have more than 10 locations most likely, in which case you can also start typing and search through to sort or to filter out the filter, right, so to speak. So you're able to just start typing and it will start restricting the available options so that it makes it easier for you to start selecting those filters. So again, a very small but significant improvement in terms of your ability to search and how you interact with the career site as a candidate. Again, impact level low because we don't expect this to have any major cascading impacts on your existing systems. We don't need to enable it. It's going to come right off the bat as soon as you upgrade to 22C. There's no configuration required, and it's definitely a quick win. Now, a little bit away from candidates and going into the recruiter's life. Now, we all know as recruiters, when you're sorting through the 51,000 jobs that you've actually posted, and hopefully you have a few lakh candidates, right? A few 100,000 candidates who have applied. You would want to go through and quickly see the snapshot of their CV or their resume or their cover letter or any supporting documents that they might have attached. Now, you might have been frustrated by having to download those, and I know how quickly people's downloads folders fill up. And just to avoid that, again, a very significant improvement here. This is we see this as a high impact level. It's going to be a game changer in some cases where you're doing mass volume recruiting. Is that you are able to quickly see the preview of the documents that the candidate has uploaded. So as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, I can just quickly look at what attachments they've given and I can preview that file within the ORC window. I don't need to download it. I don't need to open it in a different application. It's right there. So I can quickly sort through the best candidates and move forward in my process, right? So that's, again, no need to enable it. It's going to be coming by default. It does not require any configuration and it most certainly is a very quick win. The business enhancement, the business benefit is that it will significantly improve the efficiency of the users to sort through these or sift through these candidates and reduce the overall time it takes for hiring. Right? So that's major in my book. We'll move on to the next one. So this is again in terms of the enhancements, in terms of your experience as a hiring team member, a recruiter, a hiring manager, or a HR business partner, or any of the various roles that actually govern the recruitment process in your organization. You are able to filter through those candidates much quicker, and you will see a count of the candidate as well. So if you look at location, for example, I am able to filter through different locations. I was able to select Canada, and it does two things. Number one, it searches for all the child locations of Canada as well. So if I want to look at people in Richmond, candidates who are currently in Richmond, candidates who are currently in Vancouver, I'm able to see that. And it gives me a total of all of those candidates. You can see the number 8 is visible here. And also, so yeah, so number one, it searches through all the child locations, and the second thing is that it's able to show you the filtered list of candidates. So you can see the total candidates available are 12,849, but you are seeing the filtered list. So there are 8 people who have applied from Canada. And that's, again, if you're doing a high volume recruiting across multiple geographies, game changer, right? So again, we've said it's a high impact feature. To those it's relevant to, it's really relevant, right? And it'll have an impact on the way you do business and the way you are doing recruiting right now. That might change, and it might be a good segue into discussing whether there's a larger use case for this, and you are able to make things quicker in the organization in terms of recruiting, in terms of management of candidates. There's no need to enable it, and there's no configuration required. So in our book, again, this is a most definite quick win. The business benefit is self-evident. It allows a user to identify a group of candidates in the same location or using the same area. Next is the job application grid view. So some of you might have seen the grid view before if you've implemented it. Number one, that's going to now be by default. So most of you might remember candidates in a flat pattern. So it's one row after the other, but it's not in any organized fashion where you can see bits and pieces of their information in a snapshot. With the job application grid view, you're able to do that. So by default, you would have a summary of the candidate when you're going through the list of candidates in the job applications, and you can quickly see their education, quickly see their experience, and make decisions on those candidates looking at certain things. Depending on what's allowed and what your process is, you can actually have this summary used to do a preliminary screening of all your candidates that come through. And of course, then you can see more details as and when you need to. So it really facilitates the comparison of candidates. If you select, let's say, 2 people you want to review and there are 2 people in the new to be reviewed phase, you're able to quickly see the difference between them without having to go through each one and look at their CVs and look at the different formats in which they've put in their data and then try to compare apples to oranges, right? You're able to do that much faster. Again, it might look like a small enhancement, but where it matters a lot. We think this can actually change the way people recruit and change certain habits and change certain actions, save a lot of time. And so the impact level has been tagged as high. We do not need to enable this. This will be right out of the box. It's one of the many enhancements in terms of experience and user experience that are being done. The same theme is being followed here. It does not require configuration, and it definitely is a quick win. One of my favorite features, I think, interview feedback, scoring, and ratings. So you all know that we can do interview feedbacks online and you can have an evaluation online, but now we have the ability to rate people and an overall rating, and even those individual questions can have a scoring enabled, and then you can have a rating section where you can rate the individual candidate. All the interviewers or the evaluators will give their own rating, and in the just here, if you can see, it does give you individual ratings as well and does give an overall score, which is an average of both the respondents. So I'll give it a few seconds. I'm going back to the previous page. I'm going to keep it here so that you can just read through it, just to get a sense of what's going on. And then I'll move forward in a few seconds. But the basic idea is that when you do an interview, you were already able to send out an electronic evaluation form to evaluators or interviewers, which was basically just an online form. It did not have a lot of scoring or rating going on, nothing like the pre-screening questions. But now they have enabled or now they have given us the ability to rate interviewees as an interviewer within the electronic form, and it does makes it reportable and makes it easy to distinguish between different candidates through that star rating. And if there are multiple interviewers, it consolidates their rating into one. So I'll just go to the next slide now. So you can see the feedback request section. You're able to see individual scores as well as the total average. So Marian has given 39 out of 100 and Jacob is given 42 out of 100, and that averages out to 40.5 out of 100. So that's the star rating score here. So this is again high impact level because now we have so many more use cases that we can cover, which were earlier either really hard or impossible to cover with the non-scoreable questionnaires, because all you could do is really put in. I mean, it was still a good enough feature, don't get me wrong, Oracle, but you now have the ability to actually score things. So there's no need to enable it. However, do keep in mind that you will have to design your questionnaires to accommodate this. So if you want to relook at some of those interview questions, some of those, the way you are taking feedback, you might want to just have a look at that right now and evaluate if there are changes needed to that. But from a configuration standpoint, it does not require any change. It does not require enablement, and it definitely is a quick win. helps us find the top candidates much more quickly. In terms of interview management enhancements, again, in the same interview side of things, you can now, if there is an interviewer who has given multiple slots to different recruiters, if any candidate in a candidate managed interview or any recruiter books a slot, then that particular slot from the interviewer is automatically removed across all other requisitions. So if I had given 3 recruiters the same slot essentially, and somebody books it, all the others are also able to are no longer able to book it, right? So they are able to see that I'm busy at that time, and I'm not going to be able to book it. Similarly, in terms of candidate managed schedules, those don't need to be published anymore. You can just create a slot and then move forward from there. So both of these things. So the idea is that they're trying to prevent double booking. They're trying to prevent um, too much going on in the same time period, and that's going to save time when managing these interviews, because even with certain integrations that are there, it can sometimes become difficult to manage these different calendars. And so that's where we are moving towards. We're trying to make things more fluid and less of an operational overhead. So the impact analysis, again, impact level high, because this simplifies a lot of things for us. No need to enable, no need to configure, and definitely a quick win. There's increased number of packages for assessment and tax credit screening services. So especially in North America, if you're using some of these services in terms of your OVI vendors, then the number of packages that can now be supported is 500 packages per partner user account. And the location package selector in job requisitions is also giving a search tool now, so that you can more easily search those locations. Again, not something that will significantly change things, but will significantly improve it for those who are using it and relying on it for their business processes. So a quick win. Right. Now comes the recruiting or Oracle Recruiting Cloud enhancements in terms of the reporting. So you can now create reports using dates. Now dates were always available, but they might have been a bit scattered earlier. They are now being available in wherever they were available. So they were still in recruiting real-time subject area, but now they've also been consolidated in the recruiting events real-time subject area. And these are all the various dates that are available. So from approved date, external first posted date, suspended duration, when was a job offer drafted, when was it approved, when did the person move to HR. All of that is available so that it can be searched more easily and you can create reports more efficiently. In terms of people who are using this, high impact, you can simplify a lot of your reporting. There's a cleaner way to build reports, and so you can actually go ahead and make reports faster as well. So you might want to increase the number of reports available to you. You might want to relook at some of the reports that are existing and simplify them through this as well. Again, for recruiting, one of the themes that they're doing is integration. So you'll notice that quite a bit. So they're more tightly integrating with partners. They're making integrations more efficient within the Fusion suite and externally. So just in a step in that direction is the geography codes that are now included in the posting transaction sent to job distribution partners. So if you're using a job aggregator, such as let's say eQuest or Broadbean, you are now able to send through the geography codes to those partners as well. And that just helps make search so much better, even on the partner websites. So it actually helps in the proper identification of posting locations to the partners. Right? So you can actually, for whatever location you are creating that job requisition, it's going to be much easier to broadcast that. The impact level is high, no need to enable, no configurations needed, and it's a quick win. Again, major enhancement here. You have work requirements. So work requirements were that section where you could ask for whether somebody's willing to you can indicate whether somebody's willing to relocate, whether they would require travel in that role, whether they would require international travel in that role. Those things were captured, and that data can easily be captured via the candidate job application flow. However, now you're making it much easier to report on that as well, and you have all of these things that are now available in that subject area. Uh, so what this does is it lets you have all those values in the work requirements folder, which is neatly tucked in, so you can quickly pick up whatever you need and create all sorts of reports with this. And that enables you to make better reporting, make better decisions through all this information. And you can check candidate preferences very quickly as well. And for each job requisition, you can check your own for your own requisitions. You can check what sort of requisitions are being created more, and then you can reconcile those as well. So I'm just leaving this on for a few more seconds for anybody to finish reading it if they're looking at any particular area here, and I'm going to move on from this. Right. I think this is another one of my most favorite enhancements. So you have now the ability to do candidate tracking. This might sound like something that um, maybe is something you use in the future, or you might not be that actively doing it right now. If not, I strongly recommend doing this. So candidate tracking gives you the ability to report on a whole host of things that the candidate is doing with your career site, and you can use all of that information to enhance that candidate experience further. So again, ties into our larger theme of candidate experience. What you can do here is you can create reports to see what requisitions are your external candidates viewing, which requisitions are they applying to. Not just that, you can also see what are the number of job searches that they've done on average. Let's say each candidate is doing what sort of job searches, what external candidates are applying to what job requisitions, uh, and what search terms are they using. So I think that is really phenomenal. So if you can start searching and start analyzing candidate behavior on your website, you can start to draw all sorts of insights from it. So you can actually think about, people are searching for this, but they're not getting those requisitions, although they are currently there. So let's say somebody's using search terms which are not matching with your job requisition titles, but they're exactly what they're searching for in reality. You can start to see those patterns and start to design your job requisitions to better suit the general searches in that particular location. Let's say if you've uh, opened up recruiting in a new location where you don't understand the cultural lingo that well yet, or it's a new operations, you're still finding your feet there. This sort of information can be a treasure trove in terms of reconciling the matches, right? So your requisitions and your candidates, you're then able to match them so much better if you know what they are searching for, or how they actually use search, and what's their relationship with the search tools on that you make available to them. That's just a different level of analysis that you can do. You can check drop-off rates. You can see how many requisitions are being viewed but not applied to, and then you can start to try to find what that relationship is, and why that discrepancy is being created. Why are people looking at your jobs but not applying to them? Maybe we need to take some remedial measures. Maybe there's a need for, let's say, experimentation. So you might then try to put in, using ORC's other features, you might try to put in, let's say, a video. What sort of video works better, which sort of video on two similar jobs, which jobs saw more engagement, and you can start to analyze these things, and start to make that uh, job advertisement more targeted to your audience. So that's something I think is quite fascinating. I really am looking forward to using this in my own projects as well, so that I can see where we can go from here. So the business benefit is that you can find out if you generated the expected traffic for a new campaign, for example, or what are the preferred keywords used in searches. So that's really quite a high impact thing, quite a high impact feature. And there's no need to enable it. It'll come out of the box. No configuration required. You can just start using it in your Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence tool, and it's definitely a quick win. The other thing that they've added is there is a new diversity DFF that they've added, which is a developer descriptive flex field, or a DDF really, for Great Britain. So which allows you to capture on the job application level, you can capture things like the NI, or the national identity, what the candidate's age band is, because you should not be asking for the exact age in that context, in that regional context, and whether they are carers, or whether they have any caring responsibilities. So that's something that you can do, and it has built in that support for it. Low impact for our existing customers, but customers in Great Britain, or in UK should actually think about whether there's a need for this, and whether they need to enable this for their instances. Now we have our first help desk new feature as well. So in terms of your HR help desk, you have now the ability to connect two different service requests and put a business driven relationship between them. So case workers and case managers can use this feature to actually connect two different, or create a relationship between your two different service requests. This can enhance your service request resolution outcomes and the efficiency of your agents, because you might want to tag, let's say if there's something that has been resolved in some other service request, you can actually tag that service request here, or if there's a duplicate service request, you can easily just flag one as duplicate, saying this is a duplicate of that. Or if there's related information you want to show, you can actually have all that, and over time it builds up this huge cluster of information where you have that connectedness inherently shown, and your knowledge is connected across. So that's something that's useful to say the least, but it really significantly improves the efficiency, because you don't really then have to reference things and search in other places. You have that connection or those relationships handy when you open a particular service request. So that's something that's good. It does not have a high impact, because it will not change a lot of how your configurations are currently there in your help desk, but it does count as a quick win. There's no need to enable it. It will become a feature that's available by default, and there's no need for any additional configurations. You can just start mapping your service requests to each other. So that was one of the HR help desk ones. I'll move on to the next one, which is again back to Recruiting Cloud. So content exposed. So you have contexts, context segments and contexts for candidate pool. Those are exposed in the OTBI subject area. So for the various contexts that you might use for recruiting, you're able to pick up those contexts and report on them. And there's also candidate type and recruiting organization, which will now be available under the candidate pool context folder for the recruiting real-time subject area. So again, more and more reporting enhancements. You're able to do more with that. You're able to set report on the context. You're able to report on the candidate types and recruiting organizations, and they're exposed into more places. So you would have to search much less to find that and get to your end report. Returning to pool member list preserves pagination, filters, and selection. So again, a feature that you probably won't even notice, but it ties back to our theme of user experience and candidate and recruiter experience. So earlier, when you reverted, if you're looking at candidate pool members and list of candidate pool candidates, and you go back, you would lose that page. But now it can actually retain the prior view when you revert back to the pool member list. So you can click on show more to expand, apply any filters you want, do any bulk actions, and if you navigate away from that, from the candidate profile that you're currently viewing, and you go back to the full list of candidates, all your selections are still applied. So it does not refresh the page, and you don't lose the work you've been doing just because you clicked through and went into a particular candidate, for instance. So again, minor thing it might seem, but it's something that adds to your experience, and it really improves the quality. And these sort of quality improvements are what make the the system so robust, and the recruiters more and more efficient as they go forward. So the business benefit, as you can see, is allows the user to be more efficient and productive when navigating search results. The impact level is high, and again, no need to enable, no configuration required, and it's a quick win. So that's the bulk of the list, so which is default with no configuration. We will we'll jump straight into the quick wins that are by default but require a little bit of configuration, and therefore it will require you to have a little bit of consideration on whether these are things you want to consider, whether you want to reach out to your consultant and ask them to maybe do that enhancement for you, or talk through and ask if that's an enhancement that you should pick up. So these are things that we will pay a little bit more attention on. So first of all, I think this one is a game changer. Although the impact to existing businesses is low because there's not anything that will change because of it, but as a consultant or as a solution architect, it just gives me so much more flexibility. What I can now do is that agents, which were agencies that you used to earlier use to give them partial access to Recruiting Cloud, and then those third-party agents would come and submit candidates or candidate profiles to you. That was the relationship earlier. So all you had was you had an agency, and then you could tag agents, and you could request those agents or ask those agents on particular requisitions to come in those requisitions and submit some candidates, right? So that was, and they would own that candidate, so they would get a referral bonus or an agency fee. And depending on your industry, depending on your location, you might not be using it, but a lot of companies would be using this. Now, one of the things that we have kept on hearing as consultants that our customers really would have benefited from was the ability to completely let the agents take control of that candidate, right? And that was very limited to submitting the candidate profile, but then everything had to be done by recruiters, and you had to figure out ways to give access of the system to the agents externally, which was, of course, a security issue as well. So we would not really want to do that. Now, here you can see this release gives a lot more power to the agents to take actions on behalf of the candidates. So this, I think, is a game changer. It really allows the agent to move the candidate from a candidate's perspective. So you don't need the candidate involved in this. You can allow them to withdraw a candidate from a job application, accept job offers on the behalf of a candidate, decline job offers on the behalf of the candidate. So they can do the negotiation as well. They can see when a candidate's interview was scheduled, and they can intimate the actual candidate on their behalf without having to have the candidate go into the system and take any actions. So I think that's major. It lets you give agencies much more actions that, like many more actions that they can take on behalf of the candidate, and that's a major benefit in my book. Moving from there, again, another game changer. So these are actually long awaited things, so I'm more excited about these. Opportunity Marketplace is the new and improved version of, I wouldn't say version, but it's a tool that's been built from ground up to facilitate internal recruiting, right? So internal career section, this is the successor to that, and it allows for you to be able to create gigs within your employee base. You can give them gigs and short jobs, let's say something for 7 days that they might want to do, or it allows you to do internal recruitment and find top talent within the organization that may fit better with the role that you are right now advertising, instead of looking at it from a purely external point of view. So internal career sites are something that are really a gold mine in terms of talent, because your people obviously already understand your culture, they're productive from day one, and you might be looking at key jobs that people within the organization can fill. So that's something that a lot of our customers use. But there is this demand that comes up a lot, that you want to show certain lists of jobs to certain employees but not to others. So there is a little bit of an eligibility involved, which earlier was not possible to implement. So when you post an internal job, it is visible to all internal employees and contingent workers. whether that job is relevant to them, whether that job is accessible to them or not. And we would typically use something like disqualification questions to make sure that we don't get unsolicited applications from employees who could not do that job, right, or were not eligible to do jobs for that department. Now, I think with Opportunity Marketplace, it gives you the ability to create an eligibility profile to categorize your internal employees and then specifically restrict jobs. So you can do job segmentation. Groups of employees can see groups of jobs, and you can play around with that eligibility to make sure that you're only showing the right and the relevant jobs to the relevant employees within your organization. I think this is something which I'm really looking forward to. I think it will solve a lot of problems for a lot of our customers. And I think this is something you should definitely consider implementing if you're implementing Opportunity Marketplace, or if you plan to do so in the future. So again, very quick win. We do need to enable this. We do need configuration in terms of setting this up, in terms of creating the relevant job eligibility profiles, in terms of mapping those people with those mapping those jobs with those particular eligibility contexts or attributes. So there is some work involved in this, but it's still something that if you're a large organization who really wants to segment that visibility to make either the experience better or the jobs more secure, is something you should definitely look into. The next one, again, this is just showing how that eligibility profile might work. So you can see there are different types of eligibility criteria that we can use, and this is not the complete list. There's a lot more in order to segment those candidates and segment those internal candidates or segment those employees. Now, within the job offer section, you have the ability to restrict, to make certain sections required to visit. So when we are creating an offer, you would, as an offer creator, you would have to visit those sections. You can't gloss over them, and you can't skip them. You have to actually open that section and put in some information. That's just a little more control over your configuration and a little more control over what needs to be filled and what can be left alone. So that's something that, again, is a quick win. It requires a little bit of configuration. Does not, there's no need to enable it as such, but does require a little bit of configuration. Now, the last ones are opt-in features. So in terms of opt-in, one of the things that I really like is you now have the ability to automatically default in your job offer a particular collaborator type. So those of you who have used Oracle Recruiting Cloud, you might remember that you're able to put in collaborator types in the job requisition. Now you have the ability to default one of those types, let's say something like an offer team collaborator type, directly into the job offer as well. So the hiring manager and recruiter are defaulted from the requisition, and users who are part of that collaborator type in the requisition are defaulted into the job offers offer team, into the same collaborator type. So that's something that you can opt into. There's no configuration required. It's just that you need to enable it, and it gives you a lot more control over your collaborator types, and it simplifies that action of doing the job offer creation. It just overall gives you a better experience that way. The next one, high impact. Finally, what a lot of us have been waiting for, you can generate Microsoft Teams meeting links in the candidate managed interview slots when the Microsoft 365 integration is set up. So that means that you're actually able to integrate and put in a joining link from Microsoft Teams. A lot of us are using Teams, and I think this option is really strong. It allows you to do web conferencing with your candidates for their interviews, and it directly integrates. So again, ties into our theme of improving their standard integrations. We get a lot more granularity and a lot more control over it. You no longer need to manually copy and paste the web conference details. So we think this is high impact. No configuration required. We just need to opt into it and enable it. Now we have one from HR Help Desk. So you know that smart text is, you can create templates, or an SR service engineer can create a template and make sure that they don't have to type the same thing over and over again. So let's say if they're talking about certain information that they require from every service request client, then they can actually just create that as a template, and smart text helps them populate that template easily. Or if they're saying thank you for your patience, you will be redirected to a survey. You know the way these things work. So if you need to have that standard bit of text, you can use smart text already. But now this release enables us to create smart text entries for chat sessions as well. So if you have chat enabled, you can actually have your agents use smart text within that chat, which will save them just over 1,000 requests. It would save them innumerable time in terms of just typing out that entire thing accurately. So smart text responses for chat, that's a new thing. You just need to enable it, and it gives you a quick win right there. You can also decide whether to add the email recipients as service request contacts or team members. So you now have a lot more control over who gets added. Whether the recipient of an inbound email must be added as a service request contact or as a service request team member can now be controlled. So that gives you more granular control over HR help desk options. And you can choose not to add the sender of the follow-up email. So the first emailer automatically gets added as a contact in the SR when somebody raises an SR through that, but the follow-up ones don't need to be added automatically. So that's in our control now. Finally, you can add dynamic link patterns automatically for third-party applications. So some of you who might be using this, you know that for third-party applications, there are particular specific types of links and formats that need to be followed. Those can be, and they are in a particular pattern, right? So question mark IND is equal to 1, 2, 3. That sort of an email which has your variables that go out in a GET request or a POST request. Those can be generated, and you can build that generation within the help desk so that your links will work even for third-party applications when you generate that pattern. And again, that's something that you just need to enable. It adds support for importing and exporting dynamic links. It will not come up as text when they are sent out. They will come up as proper links, and therefore it improves the usability and setup in usability of the setup in that. Finally, again, in the theme of integrations, you get more control over the LinkedIn integration with Recruiting Cloud, and you are able to disable the recommended matches feature within the Recruiting Cloud piece, and you can disable it at will, right? So that gives you better control over it. The next one is you can now decide whether you want to withdraw a job offer when somebody moves to HR. So if a candidate has 5 different job offers, if they move to HR on one of them, so if they've accepted one and move forward, do you want to automatically withdraw them from the rest of the 4, or do you want to allow them to still consider the rest of the 4? So that's something that you can now control. Earlier it used to get auto withdrawn from all the other offers. So that's something that you can do as well. Again, in the theme of giving you more control over your system, follows that same pattern. You have your grid view even in terms of your candidate search. Earlier, this was only in terms of your job applications, but you can now see that it's also there in terms of candidate search, and you can preview the resume right from here. That brings us to the last bit. So again, in terms of your granularity, you know that you have certain adaptive intelligence, best fit candidates and similar candidate features that help you through machine learning to find your candidates and give you recommendations. Generally, this only works in English for now because that's where the data set is. And so a few of our customers who are multilingual, they might not want that top candidate section or the recommended candidate section to be visible. So now you have the ability to hide that recommendation based on either supported languages. So if you're you're viewing it in non-English, it will go away, or on the basis of location. So it might be illegal in certain countries to be using an AI to filter candidates, right? So then for those countries, you can actually remove that recommendation feature altogether, and you can leverage it where it is fine to use it. So it's up to us and gives us a lot more granular control over how these things work. Finally, you now have messages which will give more details about it. So your overall the output message that used to come through, it is now more descriptive in terms of exactly what is going on. So is it data ingestion is still in progress, that's why we couldn't find any recommendations, or it's data still being processed, that's why we couldn't find it, or it's just that we actually didn't find any recommendations, so there's no hope also. There's no point of waiting, right? So it gives you a little more information there. So the hiring team now has more control over the recommended section. So I think that's all in terms of the summary features. I didn't want to take up a lot of time from Hardik's closing note or questions. So I'll give it back to Hardik for the Q&A and closing notes.
Hey, Niam, thank you so much for these wonderful and detailed insights from your end. Just before, I mean, we won't take much of your time now. We'll just, before we head to the closing note, we'd like to take your area of interest, whether it's technology innovations, managed services, value-based analytics, which is adding massive value into many of our existing clients. Also on the Glide 4.0. If you need any of information, further information, or a one-to-one session on any of these, you can give us a shout. You can write to the dedicated project managers, or if you're not an Evosys client, you can write to us in business@evosysglobal.com. Meanwhile, I've got a panelist. They'll be checking if there's any question. No, there isn't any at the moment. But if you have any later stage, again, you can write to us, and you can also reach out to the dedicated project manager or service manager. Now we have the new layer in place. I'll be closing the poll now. And as of now, we don't have any question, but let's quickly look at what's coming up next. So what we have is supply chain in half an hour time session, then the talent management coming next week, Tuesday, the 12th, and then supply chain inventory and order management. So any of your colleagues would like to be part of this benefits and compensation on 13th, or project portfolio management, PPM, can pass out the message. They can be part of this. Really appreciate. And just before you leave us, would like to tell you that we'll be sending you presentation PDF and also the recording and everything in a few days' time, and the test scripts as well. And just quickly want to check so that we can improve even more. If you can let us know how we did today, how Niam did today all together on a scale of 1 to 5. How was the overall experience of today's session, so that we can improve based on your feedback. So thank you once again, everyone, for the feedback. I'll be closing the poll. And just last question, if you can please tell us, sorry, I closed the poll. And if you can please tell us that, have you attended any of the previous advisory sessions? Yeah, thank you so much for the votes. We won't trouble you more now, and we would like to again appreciate for your valuable time today. I'll be closing the poll now. Thank you so much, and that's about it for today's session. And we again really appreciate for your presence today, and here are these upcoming sessions. And once again, thank you everyone.